Hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello. Sorry, Zangdai was not speaking yet. I was sharing the link on a few places. Hello, hello, everyone. Hello, Kekion, Zangdai, the Midnight Alpha, PUBG, Barot. Pierre, we need more baguettes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I live for a week. Well, to be fair, market was already tanking before I was gone. To be honest, but yeah, quite the week last week. Basically, yeah, minus 10K in price. That's something. That's something. But yeah, so for today's stream, a slightly shorter stream than initially planned. Initially, the idea when I thought about making this stream last week was to do some chat requests and scan the market. But truth is that with what happened with where we are sitting right now, short term, I'm not necessarily planning to make any moves. Even if there is something that looks interesting, I think I would need to see more from Bitcoin itself. And I think in the short term, keeping what's running, what's still valid is fine, but not necessarily sorry, rushing to new positions might be a good approach. You have the counter argument that says that we got absolutely annihilated and that therefore we could get some bounces. But even if that was to be the case, I would want to see Bitcoin break our H4 downtrend first. So what I will do instead of the initial chat request that we had planned is that I will dedicate the next 30 minutes to my Bitcoin views. So H1, H4, daily, weekly, what I want to see, what we need to see if we want to see some bounces. If we bounce where I would expect it to bounce. And then next week I will be streaming again. I will be streaming either on Tuesday, either on Wednesday next week. And this time, no matter what happened to the market, unless of course we are in the 30s by then, but hopefully, hopefully fucking not, right? But yeah, basically more chat requests next week. And this week, I feel like it's a good time to discuss a little bit more Bitcoin. Even for me, that has not been trading Bitcoin that much and basically haven't touched it since the daily 200 MA retests and daily trend loss. I've had my focus more on altcoins, especially Zcash, VVV, Grass, Morpho, Hype, on places where I've done great, particularly on Zcash, particularly on VVV. Less great, I think we can say, on things like Grass, where I took a loss last week, or like Morpho, where I took two losses, two times on reduced sizes, but still that remains a minus 0.6 R. But still, up until this time, I felt like keeping the focus on Bitcoin was the right move. Right now, I feel like even if not necessarily looking to trade it, at least letting it pace the things a little bit more. So we will see. But yeah, that's the main goal for today. So if you're coming for chat requests, I'm sorry, that's not going to be today, but that's going to be more next week. And for the people of the Haven who might be on the stream right now, I will be streaming this Thursday afternoon. And we will very likely dedicate more time for chat requests in the Haven. So if you have chat requests, if you're in the Haven, don't hesitate to ask them in the chat as usual. And I will cover them on Thursday. And for the people who are not in the Haven, we will discuss them next week. Don't hesitate if you want for next week to ask me on comments below this post. Another impersonator. You can block and mute this person. But yeah, so don't hesitate if you want to ask me some tickers below this post, and I will cover them next week. The only bad thing is that 7 days in this market can be a lot. Many things can happen between today and next week on the ticker that you might ask me. But we see. So how am I doing? I'm doing fine. It was a long weekend, big wedding, 5 days, basically 4 days of waiting. So I'm a little bit exhausted. And I'm leaving Friday for the Barcelona F1 invited by OKX. So that's super cool. But that also means that no rest, basically. And I'm leaving on Friday again. But I will be back next Monday. So that's nice. I'm not going to complain. But yeah, it's been good. Hello, Remy. Hello. What's your top alt bag? I'm only left with one main bag after last week. If you want, before we get into the chart request, into the Bitcoin updates, before next week, I had still a third of my Zcash long moving. And the latest update was that we had adjusted our stop from 495 to 510. Basically, doing what I do when I ride a trend down a swing that's still running is that I keep a moon bag basically, or a third, a fifth, no matter. And then I adjust the stops as the daily trend develops. But we know the rest of the story. This one got annihilated last week when I left. Good thing for us is that that was a very good stop placement in the end, because let's imagine that I kept it much more far away. Basically, I would have gave back much more than I already did by not selling the Picotop, but I'm not delusional. I know that I'm never going to sell the Picotop. Outside of that, I had 2 attempts of long on Grass and Morpho. On Grass, the main idea was to long the attempt of breaking and flipping this weekly downtrend that Grass has been below for quite some time. And basically the idea was to bid on reduced size, so a third of what I would usually want as size and running, and beat the weekly trend. So unfortunately, we can see that these got stopped also. Good thing is that, again, it was reduced size, so it's not too much of a pain. When we started to focus on Grass, we knew that this is the first attempt of breaking the weekly downtrend. Sometimes it gets tricky around it. We might not get it the first try, but so that's why I decided to go from half size to, after all, only a third. That was the update on end of May, adjusting the size from half to thirds. And that was the main reason. The main reason was this is the very beginning of a trend. If we have a trend, then maybe it's gonna get choppy around it. And the second reason was I was not very confident that Bitcoin would defend the low 70s, which was also the reason I decided not to play the daily 100 MA retest. So that was Morpho, but it was the same thought process with Grass, size a third for the same reasons. And yeah, Morpho, as I said, exact same situation, decided to beat the daily trend. The only difference is that we already tried to beat that daily trend, and it already failed a first time. So that's on Morpho. I am in 2 consecutive losses and 2 consecutive failed attempts at trading the break of that $2 levels. So I decided to give up. I understand Morpho doesn't want me. I should stick to the system, and the system says that if the trend is not respected, you have no trend. And therefore, what do you do in that situation? You take a sit back and you wait for the trend to be defended. I will very likely have to buy it higher than what I would have been with these 2 positions, but I will wait for something like this to look like before considering to get into the position. So that's the case, and therefore I am only left with 1 position running out of all of these, which is my VVV swing, which is from the $6-7 with a compounding in the low 8. This one, compared to the others, is still above the daily trend, and the stop therefore has not been tagged yet, so I'm sticking to it. And that's basically where I stand right now in terms of what I am running off of the recent things that I've shared or discussed on stream with you guys, whether it was on public stream, whether it was in the event, whether it was on CT. I think it's pretty much, yeah, you can see that these are the main things that I've been discussing lately. So that's where I'm sitting. So honestly, I don't have to complain much. Sticking to my system on Bitcoin and basically respecting daily 200 MA, respecting the weekly downtrends, and then most importantly, respecting the fact that the daily trend was lost at 77.5, 78.5, has once again avoided me a lot of trash. I know that for many people, my system can sound very dumb because basically I'm just respecting 2 imaginary lines. And I'm not gonna be your turbo high IQ lad who is watching 500 different data and who can see what's moving, why, where. Nope. 2 imaginary lines. Is the price below? Yes. If the price is below, then I'm not participating, basically. And I know that it sounds very dumb, but it's been a few years and it's still doing me wonders. So I'm not here to celebrate. I'm not here to do some victory lap because I've not been trading that downside. I've just avoided it. But yeah, I actually think I posted this thing a few times over the past few weeks on CT. That as much as the market has been complicated over the last few years, I still believe that this remains a market that you can trade just by asking yourself, is the price above the daily trend or not? And if it's not, sit back basically. It's not flashy. You will likely not be able to share some flashy PNL cards on CT. You will not catch tops, you will not catch pico bottoms. But you will be there next time we do a ×5 basically. But all right, okay, so that's the case on the alts. That also explains you guys why I don't necessarily want to dedicate too much time to alts today, mostly because I don't have that much running anymore. But also, I'm remain interested. I still think that I don't know if Bitcoin has bottomed. This is what I'm going to discuss right now. I don't know if Bitcoin is done for the downside for now into the summer, or if we have to see more shit ahead or not. But I know that at the moment we're gonna see Bitcoin stabilize. I think what we've seen over the past few weeks with some alts managing to have some isolated trends, which is what we see every bear market, is going to repeat. And that's gonna be my main focus for the next few weeks to months. Basically, I'm in bear market mode where I'm sticking to the daily to weekly time frame, and I do nothing until I find setups like the Zcash and the VVV ones that we've been taking over the past few weeks. And sometimes it's gonna do well, sometimes it's gonna go against us, but it's the way to go in my opinion. So what is my main point of view on Bitcoin? I'm gonna start from the higher time frame and then go into lower time frame. On higher time frame, for those who have been watching the stream for some time, you know that this has been our main weekly chart for the past, I think, 3 months. I think basically since the beginning of the January breakdown, we've been watching this unfold. And the main trigger for us to have been watching this chart was the loss of the weekly 100 MA. For those who are not aware, when I am in a situation where I have the end of a strong trend followed by 100 MA loss, most often than not, my main assumption is that we are going to see some EMA compression, whether it's on the weekly, daily, H4, H1 time frame. We've seen it a lot with Zcash on lower time frame, by the way, like whether it was the end of last stop where we've had the end of a strong trend, 100 MA defended a few times, then 100 MA lost, and then basically a local top formed. We've seen it on Bitcoin a few times also, but yeah, basically same thought process, just on different time frame. And when we are expecting an EMA compression, the two main things we are going to be watching are going to be the 100 MA at the top. That's going to be our must break, and the 300 MA at the bottom, that's going to be our must hold. And basically, you can either try to trade in between the moving averages, trying to capture the gap fills that you see, or you can just sit back and wait for a trend to be defended outside of the compression, which is our confirmation of exit. So in our case, that means that on the weekly time frame, the main focuses we have are the weekly downtrend itself, which is a must break obviously, and the weekly 300 MA region. And the main trades that I have in mind and that I've had in mind that we discussed a few times over the past few weeks and months. The first one is the buy in the weekly 300 MA region and pray, which I intend to do. Not full size. I don't necessarily have the balls to go full deep, just full buying the dip. But I know that if at some point weekly 300 MA region and below it is retested, I'm gonna be a buyer. I'm gonna be a buyer with a very wide invalidation and therefore with a reduced size. But I'm gonna start buying Bitcoin again and basically pray that this is not the end of the 4-year cycles. And this is mostly the kind of reaction that if you've had it every time we've been visiting the weekly 300 MA region, you've been rewarded basically. So either this time is different and we are fucking fucked, and in that case, I'm gonna take a loss. this is probably some Bitcoins that I should be able to sell at much higher prices eventually. But I will not be comfortable with that setup. As I said, the one setup that I would be very comfortable taking would be higher. It would be on break and flip of weekly 100 MA and buy on the upside. It would be less Bitcoin for me, but it would be infinitely more easier for me to execute, and therefore very likely a much better trade in the end for me in terms of not fucking it up in the middle. I can see 500 scenarios where I buy in this region, and between the moment it starts bouncing or not, my monkey brain will have found 505 reasons out of the 500 scenarios to get out. While in that scenario, I know exactly how the setup would look like basically. But still, this remains my main focus. I believe you can. I believe that during that bear market, you can basically stick to this this chart and this plan, in my opinion. Focus on weekly trend retests, being the Pico local top of that bear market rally, and focus on the main part of the moving averages. So that's the weekly time frame. I don't necessarily have much more to say, beside the fact that we are sitting in between weekly 200 MA and weekly 300 MA now, and that it will not be the worst place in the world to bounce and to retest this region before visiting the weekly 300 MA. Could very well be a bottom, could go to weekly 300 MA. I don't know. I'm not making these drawings trying to predict what's going to happen. I'm just trying to have an idea of how I want to manage my risk if/when we visit these places. So I don't know how it's going to develop. What I know is that up until the time we break weekly downtrends, I will consider any retest of it as a bearish retest. And I know that if we revisit the weekly 300 MA region, which is basically 40s, 50s, you fucking pray, basically. We can move on to the daily time frame, which is the second main time frame I'm focused on. So if you need to keep one thing in mind, is that weekly downtrend plus weekly 300 MA region, two of the main focuses I have. And the second main focus I have in terms of bull bear PAs, but more in the short-term perspective, is the daily downtrend, which has been fantastic over the past 2 months now, basically since early April. On early April, you had the break of the weekly daily trend, and then daily trend retested multiple times until filling the gap to daily 200 MA. It was nice enough to consolidate long enough for the daily trend to catch up with price, flip resistance, retested multiple times, and then basically died. So for me, short term, outside of the weekly downtrend, I think the daily downtrend is the third best focus to have on Bitcoin. And it's catching down rapidly. It's in the 66.2 up to 70K region. We have a wide gap. I think one thing we can discuss in particular in that daily chart is the gap we see between the daily 13 EMA and the daily 32 EMA. Usually when I'm watching a trend develop, the wider the gap I see within the trend, so between 13, 25, 32 EMA or whatever you use as a trend, the wider the gap, the more I'm expecting to see the trend to be retested. You can see two types of retests, either by bouncing into it and the trend is retested, or by bottoming, consolidating at the bottom, and it's the trend that catch down with price. I don't know if we're gonna go for the first approach or the second one, but usually, and again, I'm not saying that it has to happen that way, but usually when you have these kind of gaps between 13 EMA and 32 EMA, I expect to see a daily trend retest after that. So will it happen at current places and it's the daily trend that's gonna catch down, or are we going to bounce into it? I don't know. But that's one thing I would be watching for the next few days. If we get a daily downtrend retest or not. And I would not expect a bigger bounce than this, or I would say it another way. I would expect Bitcoin to have locally bottomed and get back to ranging and bouncing, if and only if the daily downtrend is broken. To say it a third different way, any bounces into the daily downtrend for me are to be considered as bearish retests, and a break of the daily downtrend is to be considered as a signal of a local bottom into bigger bounce, or at the very least chop for some time. Okay, And that's it for the daily. And finally, last chat, and then I already have to move. I warned it would be a short stream. For once, it's not going to be a 2-hour stream. I said it. I'm going to try to stick to it. But yeah, the last chart is the H4 chart. Last week, even if I was AFK, I've been watching two main things unfold on Bitcoin, and it's something that I always do when we have concentrated volatility in a short window of time. When you have these kind of moves, whether it's up or down, very often lower time frame trends, 15 minutes, 1 hour, are absolute bangers, because they're gonna help you not to at least try to knife notch too early. And it's been pretty nuts. From memory, it's been one of the wildest lower time frame trend I've seen in a while. The initial 15-minute trend that led us basically from 73k down to, before it started to chop around bit, down to 63k, and the H1 trend basically did the entire 77 outside of a little bit of chop around it, all the way down to 61k. So that was pretty fucking brutal. And now I think one of the main things we need to watch is the H4 trend, which was retested earlier today, and which basically has been the same one since the 76, 77, 78k. I think we can even argue that it's the same one since the 80s. There has been a couple of deviations around it, but yeah, same trend. And I think it's gonna be the main thing to watch short term and on lower time frame on Bitcoin. It's flat, so I would say that we have two main options. We chop around it, and in that case, we go for the scenario where the daily downtrend is retested by consolidation, and it's daily downtrend that catch down with price. Or we manage to break through H1 200 MA, in which case I think we go for the scenario where we bounce into the daily downtrends. So short term, I think if you want to some focuses on lower time frame, I would say that the 61.5 into 62k, so this block over here where the H1 100 MA is the must hold. I think you want to see this region defended in order for us to have a range at least to chop fast. So that would be 61.5 up to the 64, 63k. I think at the very least, this is what we want to see. I believe that if this place is not defended, we are going to see H4 downtrend continuation and some brutality this week. And basically, we could very well continue last week momentum. So that I think that would be scary. I don't think these lows are safe if we fail to print any signs of bottoming and some sort of higher low in lower time frame. So H1 100 MA is a must hold, and all the way down to 61.5k ish region. And if you're looking for an additional confirmation to expect a bigger bounce, I would say that a blast through H1 200 MA, which is currently sitting slightly lower than I updated earlier at 64.8. I believe that if you get the combination of close above H4 trend plus H1 200 MA flipping, then you expect the bounce into the daily downtrend. I will not be playing that gap fill. I don't think I'm very interested to do so. I will simply set some alerts to where the daily downtrend is, and I'm gonna wait for the daily downtrend to be retested. I'm gonna apply one of the main principle of my system, and something that I spam you guys at least 1,000 times per year, is when above where. I am not smart enough to know where we are going to bottom. All I know is that when D1 is above daily trends, I have infinitely better odds at trying to play the upside. I'm not saying it has a 100% shot. We've seen it at the end of last leg down. You've had a first fade flip of the daily trend, a second fade flip of the daily trend, but eventually, at the very least, it was signal of chop fest, and eventually it gave us a daily trend, which was perfectly respected. So I will miss this entire kind of bottoming process, but I'm perfectly fine with it if I manage to catch that after. So I'm going to continue to apply this, and I'm going to continue to pray, obviously, that where is not too low, but I'm gonna stick to that basically. And I know, as I said, this is not flashy. This is not sexy. This is not necessarily what makes City go nuts. But for mid-curve traders like me, and statistically like many of you in the chat, it's probably the best approach to have, if I have to be honest. So that's about it for today for me. Again, sorry if it's a short stream. It's been 40 minutes. I will repeat what I said at the beginning of the stream. I am, for now, only left with my VVV swing. That is still the one defending the daily trends. I got cut out of the ZEC long last week on the loss of 510. Grass and Morpho for now are also flat. And I'm going to be waiting to see how things develop for the both of them. On Bitcoin, the three main focuses are weekly downtrends and retests, weekly 300 MA region. If we get there, this is the place where you basically call and invoke all the bulls you have in mind and you pray. Daily downtrends, which on any kind of retest must be respected. Again, we have big gap within the trend, in between the trends, which can be a signal of incoming retest, whether it's from a bounce or from the trend itself catching down with price, which would be consolidation. And if you want to focus on lower time frame, if you want an additional trigger for you to expect to see a bounce, and basically if you're looking for a confirmation to play bounces, I would say that if/when Bitcoin manages to close above H4 trend and flip H1 200 MA, we have the recipe to see some bounces into H4 100 MA and 400 MA. If you have to focus on anything in the alts world, I would say that try to find the few places where the daily trend is still defended and try to focus on it. Obviously, I have VVV in mind, but if I'm not mistaken, HYPE is also still above the daily trends, even if, in my opinion, HYPE has been weird to trade. Obviously, it's been a fantastic trade, but personally, as I said multiple times on stream, I've been struggling to trade it nicely. I think NIR is also still above the daily trend. Yeah, struggling a bit, but still above it. My main take is that if you have to try to play any kind of things in the alt world, scan the market long enough to find the few places that are still fighting with the daily trend. And then you see how it goes from there, I believe. And as I said at the beginning of the stream, one of the reasons the stream today is shorter is that I believe that short term, after these kind of moves, letting the market breathe a little bit, letting Bitcoin find its floor, build its range, if it has to, as we discussed on H4, if it has to build some sort of a consolidation range, whether it's here or slightly lower, then let it do first. Let it do first, because up until it manages to do so, it's likely that ads get a little bit bullied. But if/when it starts showing some signals of building some sort of horizontal support, I believe it's going to open a window for some alts to breathe after last week sell pressure that was inflicted by Bitcoin. So basically, I believe you're in no rush. Just let things develop a little bit, set some alerts, try to scan the market looking for daily trends. And if you have any chat request for me for next week that you want me to cover, if you're not sure that you're going to be able to be here next week, for example, comment on the post, on the tweet of the stream, and I will do my best to cover everything next week when we will do a second stream on YouTube. All right, guys, I'm going to wish you good luck. Please don't be an idiot. If at some point, last reminder, I already discussed that last week, but I'm going to say it one last time. If at some point the market was to bounce, don't fall for the people who are going to be flashing their P&L cards on CT or in your group chat or any Discord you are. Most of them they are not showing you the 15 attempts before who have failed to play the bounces. And they are not going to show you the 15 R they have to make back just to get back to neutral after trying to play the knife snatch. Stick to your trades, stick to your plans, don't let CT influence your decisions, and yeah, be patient. All right, guys, thanks everyone for joining. I will see you guys next week for